Oh, come on now. Joe didn't know? You buying that? Are you? I'm not. Good morning. It's good to be here on a Tuesday on KCMO Talk Radio. Yesterday was a big day. Yesterday, we found out that we are further along in tying this president of the United States towards a corruption scheme, a pay-for-play scheme, than we ever were the former guy, than we ever were the big guy.
Such a cute soundbite.
I'm just pointing that out. I'm going to be always transparent with you, and I believe give it to you straight. We don't know what exactly Joe Biden knew about Hunter Biden's business dealings. We don't have it all yet. I'm not going to sit here and talk and scream and make things up that might fit the narrative that some want to point out there before we actually have all the information. Something, by the way, the media didn't do from 2016 to 2020. The irresponsible nature of the media during those 4 years, every time there was a rumor that Donald Trump might have farted near a Russian oligarch, it was, I knew it. I knew he was in the back pocket of the Russians. He once farted within 10 feet of them back in 1996. We're not going to do that here. But what we found out yesterday, Devon Archer, former business partner of Hunter Biden, he testified in front of the House behind closed doors. And what we found out yesterday is that time and time again, Joe Biden lied to the American people. He lied that he knew nothing about his son, Hunter's international influence peddling scheme. He lied that he never spoke to Hunter about his overseas deals. What has leaked so far about Devon Archer's closed-door testimony, which I will note was not under oath, which is interesting. So I'm taking all of this for what it's worth, but it's still very much newsworthy. But just so you're clear, it was not under oath, which I find interesting. But what has leaked so far from Archer's closed-door testimony is that Hunter, once his best friend and business partner, put then Vice President Joe Biden on the speakerphone more than 20 times during meetings and invited him to dinners with his overseas business associates. According to Archer, Joe was there to add value to the brand of corrupt Ukrainian energy company Burisma, which was paying Hunter $83,000 a month while his father was VP, after which it cut his salary in half. What do you think that's all about? Cut the salary in half right after the big guy is no longer in the VP slot? So you have this testimony yesterday behind closed doors, and it's continuing to link the now president of the United States closer and closer and closer to his son's corrupt overseas business dealings. Now, the phone calls at dinner was kind of a way to signal to everybody that, Joe's in the loop. Wink, wink, nod, nod. He wasn't getting down into the nitty-gritty, right? That wasn't what he was doing. But the point of getting Joe on any of these phone calls was just to kind of give a little heads up. Hey, the big guy's here. The big guy's in the loop. Because the product that was being peddled was Joe Biden. That's how influence peddling works, right? That's the only reason that Hunter and his uncle Jim Biden were paid millions of dollars by Ukrainians, Chinese, Russians, Romanians. Did I miss anybody? The list goes on and on and on. So the defense, and by defense I mean, Joe Biden's friends in Congress, they're really struggling here on this one. They are really struggling. Dan Goldman, a Democrat from New York, is on the House Oversight Committee, and he was in this closed-door hearing yesterday with Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devon Archer. And Dan Goldman got in front of the media yesterday, and it was a hell of a pitch he made. Dan Goldman, congressman from New York, Democrat, wants you to know that, yes, Joe was on the phone, 20 times, I believe it was, with some of these characters, over 20 times, according to Archer, that he was on speakerphone during some of these meetings. But, Joe's just there to do things like, talk about the weather.
And I want to be very clear about one thing. He did describe that there were approximately 20 occasions over the course of their nearly decade-long business relationship where, when one of them called the other, that Hunter Biden would ask his father to say hello to whomever he was at dinner. He said there were some times when it was friends and sometimes when it was potential business partners or business partners. But the witness was unequivocal and stated very clearly that they never discussed any business on that phone conversations. There were niceties, and there was a hello, and we talked about the weather or whatever it was, but it was never any business.
Just a little weather talk with Joe. Right?
How about those Bears?
Is it sunny over there in Kiev today? Oh, man, I'll get you boys out to the beach house down here in Rehoboth, Delaware sooner than later. Are you kidding me? Now, I do believe that. Right? I do. I don't believe that Joe was talking business on these phone calls because guess what? He doesn't have to. Joe's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's not foolish enough to go out there and start talking business. He's just not going to do that on these phones. The point is simply for Hunter to get the big guy on the phone and simply say, yep, Pops is here. Hey, say hello, Pops. Hey, how's the weather there, boys?
I got hairy legs. Don't make me call Corn Pop. Right? And then from there, you can't, as the guy you're dealing, you can't go, is your dad still listening? Right? You infer he's there, and at that point, you're whoops.
Whoops. You put him on speakerphone, talks about his hairy legs, talks about the weather, and then you move on with your day. The point is simply to get his voice on the phone. So you can say, hey, Joe's here. Yep, say Joe. Say hi to the business partners. Say hi to these guys. Okay, hey, boys, how's the weather? Corn Pop. Drop a Corn Pop reference and hang up the phone.
He's the muscle of the outfit.
All you need to do is get his voice on there. That was the purpose. You're selling a brand. Joe's not into the nitty-gritty details, theoretically. Now, there still is a ways to go. I'll admit there's still a ways to go to directly tie Joe Biden to any of this potential corruption directly. But, man, the smoke is continuing to burn. There's no doubt about that. The smoke is there. It is there more today than it was when we started the day yesterday with this hearing from Hunter Biden's former business partner saying Joe was there to sell the brand. And by the way, this is an ugly, ugly side of the swamp that Donald Trump always talked about. But now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the swampiness that exists in Washington, D.C., and how so many of these family members of these politicians, of these career politicians, can and oftentimes do make a small fortune off of the fact that daddy, mommy, aunt, uncle, whoever, is a swamp creature living off the taxpayers' dole for decades. 913-408-7710 as we get to 6:14 on a Tuesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Do not forget, you know what it is, right? It's a tirade Tuesday coming up at 8:30. Don't miss that. Plus, we've got Chiefs training camp tickets, a text to win in 1 hour. Pete Mundo on KCMO. Next, Missouri Democrats appear to be their own worst enemy once again. We'll tell you why on KCMO. Well, I should note today is also Election Day on the Kansas side of the state line. So if you are a candidate who is on the ballot today and you'd like to call in for a quick 1 to 2 minute pitch of your candidacy, you know how to get a hold of us, 913-408-7710. We'll weave those in and out throughout the morning here on KCMO. So when we can get to them, we will. Yes, you should go to the polls today if you're on the Kansas side of the state line. City council races, school board races. There are things that matter in your community that will make a big difference in many ways, more of a difference these people make in your life, your day-to-day life, than what's going on in the cesspool that is Washington, D.C. So we'll do that throughout the morning. If you are running or somebody you know is on the ballot, 913-408-7710. Happy Tuesday morning. Also, happy month of August. July just flew by, and now you got the kids going back to school in some cases next week. Now, in Missouri, goodness gracious, they can't get out of their own way. I was talking to somebody in the office about this yesterday who was bemoaning the fact that Missouri used to be purple. And that meant we used to get more money as a radio station in advertising dollars in a swing-ish purple state, you know? But now when you get to a general in Missouri, no one's going to spend a ton of money on advertising. It's just not going to happen because Missouri is solidly red. Now, we still might get and will get a lot of money in the primaries, but when it comes to a general election, Missouri is never going to be a state that PACs are going to dump a lot of money into because for the better part of almost a decade, but really since 2016, since Trump's victory in 2016, it's been a Republican plus 10 to 15 state, and it's not all that close in almost every statewide election. Well, how did we get here? Yesterday was a prime example of how Missouri got here and how the Missouri Democratic Party has been its own worst enemy. It's not that Missouri Republicans are geniuses. It's not that they've really, done everything right. Far from it, to be honest. But it's how the Missouri Democratic Party has blown off its own toes one by one. So yesterday, the Missouri Democratic Party retweeted, what do we call it now that Twitter is no longer Twitter? Now it's called X. Do we call it X'd? Do you know, Mark? You're the Twitter guru here. What do we call it? It's not a tweet anymore?
Yeah, the format is X, and then tweets are just posts now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we don't call John, you knew that. Holy cow.
I'm up, man.
Jeez.
Talk about a bombshell.
Okay. All right. So now it's a post on X. Is that the right verbiage I'm using?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm still calling it tweets, but
okay. I'm going to do my best to, give Elon his props here. So there was a post on X. Just when this audience started to figure out Twitter, now we're talking about X, by the way. So there was a post on X that showed somebody's house, and they've got a dozen Trump flags, like literally plastered on their house. You can barely walk in the front door because there's a Trump flag in the way. Like I don't care how much you love a politician. It's kind of weird to have a dozen flags on the front of your house. But anyway, this post on X went viral. It's a picture of somebody's house. It's got a dozen Trump flags on it. And the question posed was, what would you do if this was your next door neighbor? And here's the official tweet from the Missouri Democratic Party Twitter account, or X account. I'm going to get it right. And they retweet this photo. They repost this photo on X of this house that's got 12 Trump flags on it. And it reads, the roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let the insert your word burn. Hashtag vote blue 2024. So essentially, they are advocating for a Trump supporter's home to burn down. And you can see it on my Twitter page or my X page at Pete Mundo. And you can see it on my Facebook page, much easier there, Pete Mundo on KCMO.
Was that paraphrasing the Bloodhound Gang song?
Yes.
I believe.
Yes, that's exactly what they did.
Mm-hmm.
The roof is on fire.
The roof is on fire.
We don't need no water. Let the bleep burn. There you go. That's from the Missouri Democratic Party yesterday.
Wheel of Fortune, I'd like to buy a U.
That's exactly right. So they put this up yesterday, and then they deleted the post on X. They took it down because they knew it was ridiculous. You got the Missouri Democratic Party from the official X account advocating for a Trump supporter's home to burn down. I mean, that's the kind of violent rhetoric that if it was happening the other way. Could you imagine the Missouri GOP has some official X post that suggests burning down a Democrat's house, burning down an Obama supporter's house, a Biden supporter's house? It'd be front page on the Kansas City Star this morning. It'd be front page on the Star for the next 2 weeks, for that matter. They wouldn't take. They'd have follow-ups. They'd have investigations. They would want to go on and on and on about how important this is and how we can't lose sight of the violent rhetoric that is alive and well across the Republican Party. But instead, as of this morning, I mean, what do we got? No, not being covered. The Missouri Democratic Party, and that is a perfect encapsulation of how they got here. The party decided that they were going to be California's Democratic Party and New York's Democratic Party. And that doesn't work in Missouri. Just like Republicans in New York can't act like Republicans in Missouri. Republicans in California can't act like Republicans in Missouri. Right? You have to be smart and realistic if you want to win elections. And the Missouri Democratic Party decided we're going to be progressive just like, just like they are over in New York and California. And now they find themselves losing every single statewide race by easily 10 to 15, upwards of 20 points. And they can't blame anybody else but themselves. If they took some of that old populist, blue dog, Democratic mentality that really Donald Trump stole from them and didn't go insane to the left and start advocating for everything that you'd see in, Orange County, California, they might have a chance. They might at least close the gap. But instead, they act like the coasts, and then they wonder why they can't win an election. And they gripe about it on X. They gripe about it on what used to be Twitter. And the reason that they're losing is not because the Republicans of Missouri are a bunch of geniuses. They really aren't. But they just aren't them. And that's the best thing they've got going for them. 628, happy Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. I got to get into this coming up next, especially if you're a younger person like me, if you're a millennial. How much sleep are you losing? Maybe you lost a lot last night over climate anxiety. Yeah, apparently it's a thing. We'll tell you what that is and how you're reacting coming up next. You just heard it, bottom of the hour news from Fox News. Oh, it's hot in Phoenix. I know, can't believe it.
Talk about a bombshell.
It is now July 2023, ended up being the hottest July on record, shattering the hottest month ever for Phoenix by 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Woo! 30 of 31 days with high temperatures at or above 110 degrees. Media's been loving this story. It feeds a narrative, right? Total of 19 nights where the temperature failed to drop below 90 in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a dry heat.
Yeah, meanwhile in Scottsdale, they say, it's hot here too.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Can you give me, I'll take 100 in Phoenix over 92 here any day of the week. I mean,
I heard Red Eye guys talking. One of them lives down there. It said he was out when it was 110. The sun was still, or down at least, and it was like a blanket, he said. You just kind of a heavy feeling. You kind of sweat with the humidity, right?
I would, as someone who used to live in western Oklahoma where there was no humidity, I mean, it wasn't Phoenix-esque, but it was certainly much better than here. It was always 95, 100, 105. I would take that 105 over this 90. Any day.
Yeah.
I mean, this morning, right here in Corporate Woods, humidity this morning is 92%.
Yeah.
I looked at it in Phoenix, it's 29% right now. I mean,
around here, you perspire between your fingers. When it's like this, you're like, oh, man.
I mean, Mark, your folks are down there in southern Arizona, right? When you visit, I know it's hot, but come on, man. It's nice and dry. It's a dry heat.
I've never visited them in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
I've only gone in the fall, winter, and spring, so I've avoided it.
Oh, well, you're a smart man. I guess there's no point to go there in the summertime. You're right. Although still, I'm just saying, I'm not insinuating that this is not a massive heat wave for Phoenix. I'm not telling you that if you're traveling to Phoenix that you should bring a sweatshirt. I'm just saying 100 with 29% humidity or even 110 with 29% humidity is probably better than 95 degrees in Kansas City when the humidity is, running towards 80%.
Yeah, I was saying, meanwhile, the people in New Orleans are going, what heat?
Yeah. That's true. With their 100% humidity every single day. Oh, gosh, that's disgusting. I've never been to Houston, but I've heard that you literally get off the airplane in Houston and you just get smashed with a wall of gross, thick, humid air. So I'm not looking to go down there anytime soon. Now, I bring this up because yesterday, our esteemed Vice President, Kamala Harris, was doing a sit-down with GBH News. GBH News. And she sits down for them. That's out of Boston, by the way. And she does this conversation. A lot of things were covered, a lot of nonsense. And one of the things covered was young people and the climate and the doomsday scenario that they view climate change through. So take a listen to the vice president yesterday talking about a new word, a new phrase that I've never heard of. Climate anxiety. Kamala Harris says that she is learning from young people that climate anxiety is a real thing, and it's impacting their lives every single day. They make it seem like there's no point in living because we all might not be here anyway in a couple of decades. Take a listen.
So you look at, for example, young voters. I've been traveling the country meeting with our young leaders who in particular are talking to me about the climate crisis. They turned me on to a term I had not heard before. I said, tell me how you all are thinking about the climate crisis. And they shared with me a term, climate anxiety. They're concerned about their future in almost a doomsday fear about what might be within a couple of decades of now. They're concerned about whether they should have children, whether they should even try to buy a home, because what does the future hold for that prospect?
That's Kamala Harris yesterday. Climate anxiety. So if you are a young person, and I would consider myself still, I don't feel it every day sometimes when I wake up with, an achy back after trying to take care of 2 little kids. But as a younger person, I guess, I don't sit here and lose an ounce of sleep over climate anxiety. I'm certainly not having children. I'm not avoiding kids because I don't know if any of us are going to be here in 2050, John. We might not make it, man.
I'm wondering about the science curriculum at the elementary level right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering about this climate anxiety. Is it like a puke face emoji with a volcano head exploding or something? Come on. Well, it's like I think every generation has some anxiety. How about the people a little bit older than me, but, the nuclear bomb thing and the Ruskies are going to push the button, Even before then, people were afraid of electricity. So,
Well, at least with the nuclear bomb, that was a real potential fear.
Well, exactly.
I mean, the Cuban Missile Crisis did happen.
I see what you're saying, yeah. Point made.
Climate anxiety, you're not going to have kids. You're not going to buy a house because AOC tells you the glaciers are melting? I mean, goodness, here's what this is. This is an excuse that is being used for why the young generation, millennials into Gen Z, are not growing up. They're living in mom and dad's basement. They're not getting out of the house. They're not getting married. They're not having kids. And now they can do it under the guise of climate anxiety. I'm so fearful the world may not exist in 10, 15, 20 years. Oh, my goodness, there's going to be beachfront property in Lee Summit. What do we do? You can use that as an excuse for why you have not achieved what you should have achieved by fill-in-the-blank age. You can blame climate anxiety, according to Kamala Harris. But I want to know, if you're somebody who maybe has friends, family members who have this kind of mindset, have you heard them use that term? That's a new one to me when I heard her mention it, John.
I'm kind of laughing about this story and yesterday's story about YOLO spending, right? Which is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so if you're afraid of climate change, buy a boat.
Yeah.
YOLO.
YOLO, baby. Let's go.
Be ready to float.
Let's go.
Anyway, yeah.
The quote from Kamala here, they're concerned about their future in a doomsday fear, concerned about whether they should have kids, whether they should even try to buy a home. Because, well, what does the future hold anyway? What does any of this mean? This life that we're living right now. If we can't all get in our electric vehicles, if we are not all willing to have and run off of wind energy and solar energy, we might as well close up shop and call it a day. None of it matters. None of it matters.
It's like, come on, kid, you got to look forward to the next PlayStation. There's something to look forward to here.
Give them something to latch on to. 913-408-7710. I just, there's a lot of crazy things the current vice president happens to say. But this one was right up there with it. Climate anxiety for young people. Let's go to the text line as well, which is also 913-408-7710. Pete, she could sell Jim Jones Kool-Aid to this generation. God help us. That's right.
God save the Queen, man.
That's exactly right. Pete, I could use some beachfront property and lease summit. Well, no, I don't want. No. You don't want to do that. Trust me. Frank White will take your tax assessment and quadruple it if you find yourself with beachfront property. You don't want to do that.
Suddenly your little dinghy is appraised as a yacht.
Yeah, exactly. Text line, climate anxiety, gender anxiety, Trump anxiety. Which one is going to get them first? Oh, gosh. There's some good stuff in here. I just got to laugh at it because I don't know anybody who's thinking this way, but according to Kamala, they have permeated Gen Z and the millennials. And that's why no one's having kids and no one's buying homes. Because what's the point? What's the point of any of it? Coming up, we'll get to you. Plus, don't forget, at 7:10 this morning, in less than a half hour, we have a text-to-win contest to get you a pair of tickets to Chiefs training camp next Tuesday. So be listening for the text-to-win keyword coming up in 25 minutes here on KCMO. Next, the Kansas City Star is upset with a former governor in one of our two states. We'll tell you why on KCMO. Is it really the worst thing to have more than two choices? Is that really dangerous for democracy? Sheesh. Well, according to the Kansas City Star, that might be the case. Good morning as we approach 7 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. So Jay Nixon, the former Missouri governor, have you seen the story that Jay Nixon left office in 2017, announced late last week that he is joining No Labels? It's a campaign to run a third-party unity candidate for president in the 2024 election. Of course, at this point, as we sit here flipping the calendar to August of 23, it looks like we are well on our way towards a Donald Trump-Joe Biden rematch. Most Americans, when you look at the polling, don't want that. But that looks like the way we're trending. So Jay Nixon has joined this group to try to find a unity third-party candidate. Nixon will serve as the party's director of ballot integrity, working to ensure No Labels has a spot on each state's presidential ballot. He said in a statement, "I feel calm, I feel correct, I think we have a high moral ground here." Of course, Nixon was a Democrat. He was never Mr. Progressive, but, he was a Democrat who actually won in Missouri. There's something you can't say for most of them today. So the Kansas City Star is not happy about this. Kansas City Star writes an editorial that says here in part, Nixon may genuinely believe in centrist politics, but his work for No Labels is unlikely to put a sensible moderate in the White House, a figure who can bridge the seemingly unbridgeable gap between the Democratic and Republican parties. Instead, Nixon and his new allies are likely to give us another 4 years of Donald Trump. See, all of a sudden, the Kansas City Star, which will insist that Donald Trump is a danger to democracy, now says having a third option is a danger to democracy. This was their tweet yesterday. The former Missouri governor was never the most progressive Democrat, but the centrist No Labels group is dangerous to democracy in this election. That's the case that they are making here in this article.
Well, luckily we are a republic then. So.
Well, don't tell the Star
Let's go with that. Well, of course it's dangerous, Pete. We're trying to get to one party.
Yeah,
three is not going the wrong way.
We're trying to get to the uniparty here.
Yeah.
That's right. So the Star goes on the right here. The last independent candidate to win Electoral College votes was George Wallace, who carried 5 southern states during the 1968 election. Richard Nixon won the popular vote over Hubert Humphrey that year by less than a single percentage point. More recently, or more notoriously, they say, Green Party candidate Ralph Nader won 97,000 votes in Florida in 2000 and possibly deprived Al Gore of the votes he needed to beat George W. Bush for the presidency. So they go on to give all these examples about how third parties hurt Democrats. Now, that may be true to a degree. I mean, I would argue, and I might go back to, 92 and say, Ross Perot, right? Look at him and wonder how much he helped Bill Clinton when you look back on that election. The point is, the third-party candidate, yes, the examples they gave helped Republicans arguably, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a slam dunk. Here's what they're most concerned with. Here's why the Star brings this up as something that they don't want to see happen. They don't want a third-party candidate that Jay Nixon's a part of running for president because it hurts Joe Biden and it hurts the Democratic Party. Now, why would a third-party candidate, ask yourself this, why would a third-party candidate in 2024 be more likely to hurt Joe Biden than Donald Trump? I believe the answer is simple. The answer is because they realize that Joe Biden has gone so far left that moderate Democrats who don't like Donald Trump but thought they were getting something completely different with Joe Biden are going to say, screw them both. If there's a legitimate third-party candidate, we're going to vote for that person. And yes, that does likely help out Donald Trump more than it helps out Joe Biden. But that's once again because Joe Biden has turned off so many moderate Democrats. I know them and you know them. Now, when push comes to shove, if they're given the choice of Trump or Biden, they'll probably still vote for Biden because they can't fathom the idea of voting for Trump. It's all emotional. But if there were to be a legitimate third-party candidate on the ballot, they might take a look. And they might, if nothing else, send a message to the system and say, we think both of you parties are a mess. We think both of you parties are led by clowns. This would be their words, not mine. So we're going third party. And yes, that is in 2024 more likely to help Donald Trump than it is Joe Biden. But the Kansas City Star claiming this is somehow a threat to democracy and, Jay Nixon can't be doing this. No, they're simply interested in this conversation. Why? There's one reason for it. There's one single reason they are interested in this conversation and interested in pushing this narrative, because it potentially hurts Democrats. Don't let them try to tell you it's about danger to democracy. Really? More choices are now a danger to democracy per the Kansas City Star? Please. Please. The article goes on the note here in the Star. Many Americans don't neatly fit the two-party binary system. That's why alternatives like instant runoff voting, which allows voters to rank candidates in order of preference, are so intriguing for folks who want to support a third party without inadvertently throwing an election to a candidate they detest. That's what Nixon seems most likely to accomplish. Trump is radical and lawless, writes the Star. The man who has incited an insurrection at the nation's capital, getting him elected in the name of centrism and unity would be the least moderate outcome possible. Oh, the Star is so good at showing its true colors, aren't they? They are just so good. 913-408-7710 as we approach 7 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio, 710 AM and 103.7 FM. They just went right back to the well. Just right back to the well on January 6th. Radical and lawless, they say about Donald Trump. Getting him elected would be the least moderate outcome possible. I'm just looking for prices to get back to where they were pre-COVID. That's kind of it. And, when someone's got a track record of that, kind of speaks for itself, especially when you're comparing it to the big guy.
Come on, man.
Oh, my goodness. 7 o'clock hour is next. We'll talk to Dave Traubert of the Kansas Policy Institute here on KCMO at 7:30. We do also have a text to win in 15 minutes, a text to win contest for Chiefs training camp tickets next Tuesday. So listen for the text to win keyword at about 7:10 this morning, right here on KCMO Talk Radio. And of course, if you're running for office, we'll weave in your calls throughout the morning. If you're on the ballot today, we'll do that throughout the morning at 913-408-7710. Coming up, I want your help with this. The new Kansas City, Missouri City Council starts today. And I want you to help me with one word of advice for the new council. I'll give you mine next. 7:05 on a Tuesday. It is also the day that the Kansas City, Missouri City Council will begin this new council that will run until 2027. So we'll talk about that coming up here. We've got those Chiefs training camp tickets just a few minutes away. Thanks for joining us. And, of course, it's a tirade Tuesday at 8:30. Start thinking about that. But it is a day that those of you on the Kansas side will be going to the polls. There's city council races. There are school board races. And we said if you are running, we'll let you hop on for a minute or so and just introduce yourself to the audience. As folks end up going to the polls today, it's going to be a low turnout day. It shouldn't be because, let's be honest, these people will have a larger impact in many cases on your day-to-day life than all the nonsense happening in D.C. But we know the American way. We know a lot of people are not going to vote today. That being said, they should. But let's go to Wes McCoy. Wes is running for Olathe City Council at large. Wes, take it away, my friend. What's your pitch?
Well, I've been on the Olathe City Council since 2013. So I worked on the Indian Creek Library and Downtown Library for 25 years, and we finally got those finished and built a community center and built the Olathe Lake. Our fire protection class rating is 0.5% in the country. One of the tops. We've got one of the top law enforcement, public safety programs in the country. We support financial, fiscal responsibility and economic development. Right now, we have $1.7 billion of new development going on in the city of Olathe. Downtown redevelopment, downtown entertainment districts being looked at. We support attainable, affordable housing. And we've built over 800 lane miles of streets in the last 10 years since I've been on the council. We support the great schools we have, whether they're public or private. And we support the faith community and in community partnerships so we get more things done in the community.
Real quick, Wes, before I get to a couple other folks, this Pathway Project, the Habitat for Humanity project in South Olathe, we talked about that yesterday. Is that going to get through City Council?
Well, we have to go through the Planning Commission, and we have to look at the right plans, make sure it fits. And I am 14% of the council, 1/7, and if it looks right, I'm going to be supporting it.
All right. Thank you very much, Wes. Good luck today.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Rose Geringer, Merriam City Council. Go ahead, Rose. Good morning. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. Glad to be with you this morning. I'm a 24-year resident of Merriam, and we've raised 5 kids. My husband and I are now empty nesters, so we can turn our attention to more civic responsibilities. My platform is to maintain our amazing core services here in Merriam, preserve our neighborhoods and our property values, and bring a diversity of ideas to the Merriam City Council. The 8 sitting council members are all registered Democrats, and I would be the first Republican in a long time to bring that diversity of ideas to the council. We live close to Shawnee, and we would love to build on the successes that their city council has had and move that blue line back towards Missouri where it belongs.
Well, Rose, that's a good platform. Good luck today, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Appreciate you.
You bet. All right. That would be very good. And we'll weave these in throughout the morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 913-408-7710. Now, today is also the start of the new Kansas City, Missouri City Council. In case you haven't seen it on social media, my goodness, I've never seen a group of people like this new council. I mean, throwing parties for themselves, inaugurations, whining and dining themselves, considering they got elected by 13% of the population in the city. I mean, sheesh. They're acting like they got some massive mandate from the people of Kansas City, Missouri. I keep seeing these photos on social media, them on stages at the inaugurations. Like, gosh, what are you, the President of the United States?
Got a few broken arms there patting themselves on the back.
That's exactly right. I'm just glad, I see them on stage here. And a lot of the guys in the photo, the men on the council, I mean, I don't know how they're identifying today, but I'm just assuming at least they've got their hands in their own pockets. I can say that much about them. That's the best thing I can say when I look at the photos. So they begin today. And I wanted to put together a list. One word of advice for the new Kansas City, Missouri City Council. And we can take your calls or texts. Text might be easier on this. 913-408-7710. If you could give one word of advice to this new Kansas City, Missouri City Council that is set to begin its work today on behalf of you, the people, you, the taxpayers in Kansas City, Missouri, what would that one word of advice be? I'm going to give you my top 5 right now, from 5 to 1. My top 5 single words of advice for the new city council. Facts, use them, stop lying. Number 4 on the list, police. Support this police department that is at record lows for staffing in this city. By the way, none of this I expect to happen, but a kid can dream, right? Number 3, honesty. Please, I'm begging you. We had enough liars as part of the last city council. There's still a few left. Enough of that. I know it's hard for politicians to do, but I've got honesty at number 3 for my one word of advice for the new city council. Number 2, Chiefs. When all else fails, just talk about the Chiefs. It's worked pretty well for some of these people. Could you imagine this town and the conversations around this town if there wasn't the success of the Chiefs over the last 5 years? I mean, literally, you've got people on the city council who are somehow acting like they deserve an ounce of credit for the Chiefs' success, which then overshadows the fact that, record homicides, economic development's down, crime is up, all these things. But hey, the Chiefs, which you have absolutely nothing to do with. But hey, when all else fails, they'll fall back on the Chiefs. That's for darn sure. The number 1 word of advice for the new Kansas City, Missouri City Council, stones. You got to have them. Like it or not, you got to have them. And that's standing up to radical groups like KC Tenants, which they haven't done enough of the last few years. That's standing up to media hacks and liars like the Kansas City Star. They haven't done enough of that, or any of that for the most part. Standing up for your police department, standing up for law enforcement in general, first responders, doing all these basic things that need to be done. Not that I'm expecting the city council to run to the right, but just be a moderate bunch. That's it. That's all common sense people in this town are asking for. A moderate bunch. Text line is 913-408-7710. I think this is the best answer I've seen thus far on a single word advice for the new Kansas City, Missouri City Council. Move! That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, unfortunately, 13% of people decided this is who they want to run the show. And across the board, it's a fairly unimpressive group, top to bottom.
So you'd say this circus has been extended for another season?
Yes.
New episodes debut tonight?
Yep. We have renewed another 4 seasons, I guess I would say, of the Circus Act. That's exactly right.
How dare you?
7:14. It's good to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. All right, let's give away a pair of tickets to Tuesday's training camp, August 8th in St. Joe. Check out the World Champs. We've got 2 pairs of tickets to give away this week. Parking's included. Access to the Cumulus tent as well for light refreshments. Text the keyword KICK to 913-408-7710. That's KICK to 913-408-7710. Join us in St. Joe. Not me. I won't be there. But join us in St. Joe as a company next Tuesday, August 8th, to see the World Champs in St. Joe. Bottom of the hour, Dave Traubert, Kansas Policy Institute. Next, I forgot to rag on a major corporation coming out of my vacation. I should have done this yesterday. I forgot to. And you're all going to appreciate it. I'll tell you what that is next. Can you believe it? You've got major American corporations. It's one thing for someone on Twitter to be like, oh, you live in Kansas City. That's in Kansas, right? No, I'm flying home Saturday afternoon. we're flying home after visiting family, and we're on a JetBlue flight. And JetBlue is one of those few airlines that still gives you this little personalized TV. You know, they have the little TV for each seat, which is great for the kids. Not going to lie. It can be a lifesaver. And as we're taking off on Saturday afternoon, I look at my little TV in front of me in between trying to corral a 40-year-old and a 2-year-old and get the seatbelts on and keep them in the seatbelts and try to make sure they're not trying to, jump across the aisle to mom and the whole thing, right? Because I drew the short straw, so I had to. It was like a 2 and 3. 2 seats on one side, 3 seats on the other. And now we got a 2-year-old, so you got to pay for the 2-year-old on the plane, so she could have her own ticket now. So I drew the short straw, so I'm with the 2 girls on the 3-seater. We swapped about halfway through because if not, I would have jumped out of the plane. But I look at my screen, and it says from JetBlue, "Hi there, you're flying to Kansas." So I put it up on Twitter. You can see it there at Pete Mundo. But I'm like, you've got major American airlines not knowing what state they're flying to. I know it happens all the time. But it's like, hey, this is what you guys do. Like, this is what you do for a living. You fly people around the country. It would be great if you could actually get the state right that you're flying into. I've never had somebody over the loudspeaker when I'm flying back to Kansas City say, "Hey, we're going back to Kansas." But then I look at the prompt here on the TV for JetBlue, and it says, "Hi there, you're flying to Kansas." It's like, are we landing in Topeka? Did I accidentally book this flight to Wichita? What the heck's going on? Come on, JetBlue. What are you doing here? Come on, man. Sheesh.
Eastern bias.
Maybe you're right.
Well, it's New York, right? You don't say New York City.
Yeah.
Right. People
True.
are from New York. See, and so you drop the city, and it must be in Kansas. Yeah, right.
Maybe
I
that's
sort of
it.
likened it to that.
But it's like, come on, you're a major American airline. This isn't Spirit, you know? It's JetBlue. Know where you're going, for crying out loud.
The only airline with a porch.
Yeah.
JetBlue.
Oh, gosh. But it is great to be back and getting the morning rolling here on a Tuesday on KCMO Talk Radio. So yesterday, at this time, we had on Overland Park Mayor Kurt Skoog. You remember that conversation? And he was defending Overland Park's response to these storms from a couple of weeks ago. Well, one thing he said, and I don't have a dog in this fight, in this battle between himself and Faris Farasati, who is the council member who came on last week and criticized the mayor and criticized the city's response. So Mayor Skoog came on the show yesterday from Overland Park, and he responded to the claims that he was out to lunch. He left the day after the storms in Overland Park 2.5 weeks ago for a mayor's conference on the East Coast. And he responded on the show yesterday to Councilman Faris Farasati when he said this.
Well, let me just answer directly to Councilmember Farasati that I just want you to know that not once, I want you to know this, Pete, not once did he call me or the city manager during this event. I want to repeat that. A man who decided to go on social media and on your show to criticize the response did not once call me, the mayor, or, from my understanding from the city manager, call the city manager.
That was Kurt Skoog on this show yesterday. Once again, I don't have a dog in the fight. I just want the taxpayer to get taken care of there in Overland Park. Well, I have emails here, not phone calls, but I have emails from Faris Farasati the Saturday and Sunday after the storms blew through, which was Friday, July 14th. Faris Farasati on Sunday, July 16th, an email at 2:43 in the morning. Mayor Skoog, it's not the right time to be quiet about demands of constituents to receive direct help with the post-storm cleanup. I request an emergency committee on the whole meeting for council to direct staff to deploy all resources necessary to help the people. This can't wait, and you should take action immediately. Regards, Faris Farasati. That is the day after, 2 days after, and another email was sent to the city manager, same thing, day to 2 after the storm blew through. Make of this what you want, And Kurt Skoog, the mayor of Overland Park, may be right when he said Faris Farasati did not call him, but now we're splitting hairs here. He reached out to him. I've got the emails to back it up. But Kurt Skoog says there, well, nobody called me. Faris Farasati didn't call me. It is 2023. An email should suffice. So make of this what you will. Dave Traubert of the Kansas Policy Institute will be here coming up next on KCMO. 7:51. It is a Tuesday morning on KCMO. It's Tirade Tuesday. That's coming up at 8:35. So start thinking about that as we approach the 8 o'clock hour. So yesterday, you got this Devin Archer testimony that shows Joe Biden lied to the American people time and time again. Now, he didn't lie under oath or anything like that, but he lied to the American people when he said he knew nothing about Hunter Biden's international influence peddling scheme. He clearly at least had to know something about it because, as you heard from Devin Archer in what's been reported from this closed-door testimony, Devin Archer, once the best friend and business partner of Hunter Biden, said that then Vice President Joe Biden was put on speakerphone more than 20 times during various meetings between Hunter and business associates, and even invited him to dinners with his overseas business associates. According to this guy, Devin Archer, Joe was there to add value to the brand of the corrupt Ukrainian energy company Burisma, which was paying Hunter $83,000 a month while his father was VP, after which, of course, his salary was cut in half. Geez, I can't imagine why. Why would the salary be cut in half just because the big guy is now no longer VP? Oh, you mean because the big guy being VP is the whole reason you were getting paid $83,000 a month, Hunter? Jeez. So with that being said, over the last couple of days, you've had the conversations around media being like, oh, why are they dragging poor Hunter Biden through the mud? I mean, you know, Hunter's just trying to make a living out here. Come on, man. Oh, geez, just, a guy trying to make his way. That was the case that they were making on MSNBC. Chuck Todd, take a listen to this.
Do you think it would behoove the president for him to come out and say, hey, I had no business dealings with my son. My son's issues are my son's issues. Do you think he needs to say that more directly? Because there's a lot of people that believe something else would happen here.
Well, let's be clear about that point, Chuck. There's been a 5-year investigation, 5 years, by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. This investigation started during the Trump administration, and they've come forward with not one shred of evidence tying President Biden to any of this. I am encouraged that, in sharp contrast to President Trump, you've just detailed his mountain of legal problems where President Trump is fighting and pushing back and obstructing. Hunter Biden's come forward, taken responsibility, paid his late taxes. As you just discussed with Chuck Rosenberg, I think the hiccup in the Delaware District Courthouse will get ironed out pretty quickly. And I don't think President Biden needs to say anything more than he has.
House Republicans are going to accuse him.
They are.
They're going to make the accusation.
They're going to accuse him of all sorts of stuff.
Whether they have the evidence or not.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Now, there's a lot to digest there. When Chuck Todd says they're going to accuse him whether he has the evidence or not, whether they have the evidence or not, let's be clear on evidence. I'm not suggesting that we have solid evidence that Joe Biden knew everything when it came to the business dealings of Hunter Biden. I'm not saying that. But there's a lot more smoke here around Joe having some idea what's happening with his own son and his brother making millions of dollars off the family name than there ever was. Around Donald Trump and, being in bed with the Russians. Heck, there would be rumors about Trump getting peed on by Russian prostitutes, and everybody ran with that thing like it was gold. And now Chuck Todd's like, we must follow the facts. We must make sure that we are not jumping to any conclusions here. Now, I agree with that, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Joe Biden knew exactly what was going on. That's not been proven yet. But when you have a closed-door testimony of a former business partner of Hunter Biden saying Joe was on the phone at least 20 times, that is far more than anything you had around Trump and Russiagate, which was going on for 4 years during the entire presidency. I'm not suggesting that two wrongs make a right, but the holier than thou must follow the facts nonsense and BS from people like Chuck Todd is beyond disgusting. It makes me want to puke. And by the way, we can call Hunter Biden a scumbag. That is okay. It's okay to do that because he is one. It doesn't mean that the old man necessarily, we have a, slam shut case on him being involved with his kid on these business dealings, but you can say it. You can say it about Hunter, and that's not mean. That is what it is. That's analyzing a story of a family member tied to a prominent government employee, a career government employee who's made his living off the taxpayer, making at least $83,000 a month that we know of from Burisma, but what appears to be $17 to $30 million in total off nothing more than his father and his father's name and who his father was. And oh, by the way, he's got a 4-year-old that he pretends doesn't exist, and his own father, until recently, was talking about 6 grandkids and not 7. Considering we got preached to about what a high-character guy Joe was, and now he's just a guy who cares about his kid, I'm sorry, but I sit here on a Tuesday morning, I'm kind of fed up with that. Trump's no choir boy. I don't think Trump's all that high character necessarily of an individual. But my goodness, to get preached to for the last few years about how Joe's just a guy who cares about his kid and he's a great father and a great granddad, no, he's not. Neither of them appear to be all that good of people, to be totally honest, and I'm sick of it. And then you sit there and you wonder why when the media actually does report facts, there's a large part of the country that just does not believe them. They've done this to themselves, and this is just the latest example of that. Now, speaking of this, is a third party ever something that you would consider? Former Missouri Governor Jay Nixon is hoping that's the case. We'll get to that. Take a breather. Coming up next.